Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What the heck is Roki Sasaki doing? Is he going to sign? What is happening here? I don't know what's going on. But everyone, welcome to tonight's show. We got a lot to talk about here tonight. It's been rather, I guess, boring as of late. It feels like a lot is happening, but nothing is happening at the same time. You know, I don't know. I feel like we're starting to get somewhere. You know, once Roki comes off the board, I think, then I think we'll see some of these other guys start to hop off, right? You know, we've been seeing reports about, you know, some of these free agents open to short-term deals, right? We saw a lot of those last year. And, you know, especially the Scott Boras clients, you know, Matt Chapman, Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger, Jordan Montgomery, right? Taking short-term deals, right? Paid off for Matt Chapman, paid off for Blake Snell. Not too much, really, for Jordan Montgomery, Cody Bellinger. But, you know, we'll have to see where those go. I wish we would get some news on those free agents, but it is what it is. But the kind of the feeling with me, it's almost like, you know, International Signing Day. You know, kind of like, you know, if you take a look back over the last week or so, last couple of weeks, you get a lot of these sort of days, right, that come up, right? Arbitration, not the deadline to reach an agreement, but the deadline to swap figures for arbitration. You know, that's kind of a big day, right? There's a lot going on that day. And obviously today, right, International Signing Day, the floodgates open. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on during these days, right? You know, beginning of January, the beginning of the new year. You know, so you know, as we draw closer to spring training here, I think we're going to start seeing some more news. We'll see how everything goes here over the next week or two, next few weeks, actually. We're getting pretty close here to spring training. I'm getting excited. But let's talk a little Roki Sasaki, shall we? A little Roki Sasaki. Well, what's going on here? Well, the latest that we have, the kind of the big news as of late, that we have three finalists. We have the Dodgers, we have the Padres, and we have the Blue Jays, right? I think there's an argument for each one. The Dodgers have been the big favorite for, it feels like 18 years now. I mean, ever since this guy was born, the Dodgers were probably the favorite to sign Roki Sasaki. I've said the reasons a million times up to this point, right? Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto, World Series championship. Every year they're competing. Great player development, right? You know, I see some people as well, they'll throw out there, well, the Dodgers, well, all their guys get hurt all the time. What do you mean, you know, player development? That's overrated. No, because if you take a look at all the prospects that they've traded over the years to acquire big-name players, I mean, you had to develop those prospects, right? So the Dodgers, they've done a great job over the years. And, you know, every reason in the world. The only thing that goes against the Dodgers is really, it depends on the preference for Sasaki, right? We've seen reports where, you know, there could be a preference for a smaller market, maybe even a small market, right? The Padres would fit that bill. The Blue Jays are a big market, but they're not like, you know, obviously because they're the only team in the country of Canada. But you know, they're not like the Yankees, you know, they're not, you know, they're not the Dodgers, right? Obviously they're a big deal in Canada, but, you know, across the world, I think we can all agree the Yankees, the Dodgers, they're going to be the more star-studded franchises at the end of the day. So there's that. If there is a preference to go somewhere a bit more low-key than the Dodgers, you can have a lot of media there. There's also been guys out there saying that, you know, when it comes to endorsements, because Ohtani and Yamamoto are there, then, you know, maybe he might not have as much of a chance for endorsements. I don't know. In a way, I don't buy that. In a way, I feel like if you go to the Dodgers, you're going to have stuff pop up. You're going to be fine. But, you know, there's a lot of things going for the Dodgers. So they're an obvious favorite at the end of the day. And another thing that the Dodgers have, they have a lot of pitching depth, right? So if you really wanted to ease him in, you know, he doesn't have to go out there and throw 180, 200 innings in his first year, right? The Dodgers have that luxury of having a ton of depth. So, you know, he would fit pretty well, in my opinion. Now, for the Padres, right? You know, the Padres, they're kind of that one team that, you know, it seems to be the biggest threat to the Dodgers, right? AJ Preller, he's been hot on his heels for feels like years at this point. You got Yu Darvish, who has been regarded as like a godfather-like figure among the analysts there. Obviously, the Padres are a competitive team. You know, if you take a look at the National League playoffs this year, that was basically the National League Championship Series. You know, best out of 5 for the Padres and the Dodgers. They gave the Dodgers the best run for their money. So, you know, the Padres, I mean, they're pretty, they're in a good place right now. Preller has shown to be able to replenish a farm system, develop good talent. So there is that. You know, the Padres, they have arguments as well. There is one more thing that we will talk about that people have thought could be a negative attribute towards the Padres, but I'll touch on that here in just a second. But with the Blue Jays, you know, they're kind of they seem like the oddball team here, but I think the Blue Jays could have a lot going for them as well. I read a really good point the other day where when it comes to the minor league pitching development, not too much. You know, if you take a look at young pitching to come out of their system, you know, maybe a guy here and there. But if you take a look at how they've done at the major league level, you know, they've done very well when it comes to the starting pitching at the major league level, right? And, you know, Roki Sasaki, don't think he's going to the minor leagues. So I think that could end up being a good home for him. And, you know, over the years, players have raved about the Blue Jays when it comes to the how comfortable they feel, right? Justin Turner, Red Sox legend, my ginger brethren, as, he's talked very highly about the Blue Jays in the past, saying, him and his they make sure the players and their families are taken care of there. And that goes a long way for the players. You know, at the end of the day, we all like to go, or we like to enjoy going to work, right? So if the organization, if the players are enjoying it, then that can only be a good thing, right? Sure, the Blue Jays, they haven't been able to get over the hump over the last few years. People were crowning them, you know, to even be World Series champions just a few years ago. But, hey, they could definitely use something. In the end, that's not really going to be, you know, just because the Blue Jays need him. Every team needs Roki Sasaki, right? So that's not going to be a factor. But they could definitely really use some good news, right? Even Jeff Hoffman, sure, that was good news. But then you see all these other reports that the Braves, they walked away from a 5-year deal because of flags in the medical. The Orioles did the same thing. So, yeah, Blue Jays, that'd be great if they could land him. Now, we did have a few news on each team for coming out of today. Everyone, while I'm pulling this up, if you can, just hit that like button for me. We're going to try and get to 200 likes. I am noticing the crowds as of late. They are starting to die down a little bit. That's just kind of how it goes here in the early phases of the year. It's weird, you know, once you get the New Year's, the holidays have gone by. It's almost like you get a good chunk of people that, you know, kind of check out almost, right? So if you can, help us out with the algorithm, and let's try and get to 200 likes for tonight. Now, for the Dodgers, the big news for them, well, big news for all three, right? Like I said, they are finalists, but each team has now had a second meeting. So that is obviously very good for each team. But the Dodgers, one thing that they've been working on is acquiring more international bonus pool money for Roki Sasaki. I mean, obviously, you know, he's not going to be able to make a ton of money at the end of the day. He's not going to be getting a Yamamoto kind of contract because he is an international free agent, international amateur free agent. So, you know, he is tied to the international bonus pool money. But I think in the end, this isn't really going to be that big of a deal. But because really it does mostly come down to preference. But hey, maybe that could be a sign of something coming here where, hey, he wants this amount of money. And maybe the Dodgers are like, all right, you know what? We can give you this, but, you know, we're going to go out there. We're going to get a bit more money. So maybe we can go after a couple other guys out there. So maybe this is a sign of things to come here. And that the Dodgers, they are preparing themselves to try and get some more money here. Now, when it comes to the Padres, right, there was a little something here from the San Diego Union Tribune from Tom Krasovich. Now, like I said earlier, the big thing with the Padres and Roki Sasaki is the whole ownership dispute thing. Now, as days go by, as more information comes out, opinions come out, it is looking like, the widow of the late Peter Seidler, rest in peace, Sheil Seidler, it is being, a lot of people are looking at it as there's not a lot of meat to it, and it could end up not really turning into anything. It has been described as a last resort, the legal complaint filed as a last resort. And I've seen some opinions out there on Twitter that, it might not have a whole lot of legs. We'll see. That's not my opinion. That's just stuff that I've read. I think even Ken Rosenthal said something on fair territory. So there is that. But there is something here where it might not be too big of a deal. And I've been kind of saying that, my opinion on this is, that doesn't sound all that great, but I like the word that he used here in this article. It's being described more as, the whole ownership dispute thing being described more as an inconvenience, right? Not really something that can, tear apart the deal or a possible landing spot for Roki Sasaki. But it says here, though the legal dispute may be an inconvenience, said a prominent baseball agent who spoke with the Union Tribune, it can be addressed contractually. The Padres and Sasaki's team could agree to contractual safeguards that would allow the pitcher to become a free agent if certain circumstances arose during the 6 years. The agent said Sasaki has a lot of leverage and he can ask for outs in his contract. Remember, that happened with Shohei Ohtani, right? If there was anything with a change in ownership, then Ohtani has an opt or has a clause in the deal where he can opt out of the deal. So there is that. When it comes to the contract, the legal stuff, when it comes to international amateur free agents, I don't know I'm sorry. I'm not an expert by any means, even talking baseball daily, but when it comes to, the nitty gritty details like that, I got nothing. So if that is something that you can put in a contract for an international amateur free agent, then yeah, sounds pretty good. Again, I don't know what the rules are technically, but if an agent's saying that, I guess it has some weight. But there is that going for the Padres. And, we did see over the last couple of days, Sasaki throwing in Padres gear. There hasn't been any other videos when it comes to him throwing in Dodgers gear or Blue Jays gear. Maybe there was, but we just didn't have a video. Or I'm saying maybe that did happen and there just wasn't a video. But for the Padres, someone just so happened to get one. Now, when it comes to the Blue Jays, they had a bit of an interesting thing here. My goodness, AI, this is a family-friendly show. Can you cut that out? Here we go. Now, when it comes to the Blue Jays, people are looking at them in a way like I see like half of people saying there's absolutely no shot the Blue Jays get him. But then I see some other people say, maybe they have a shot here, right? And there is one little detail that I read here today. Now, you might not know the name. I'm reading off the article here from Fansided. Who is this written by? I want to give credit. Chris Landers of Fansided, right? There was this radio clip here that was posted on First Up, right? And there is one person within or at least used to be with the organization, that could end up maybe being a key figure. You might not know the name Frank Herman, an undrafted free agent back in 2006. He pitched over 3 seasons with the Guardians or the Indians at the time, Cleveland and Philadelphia. It's what he did after, which could affect the fate of one of the biggest free agents on the market this winter. Says here, after his few years in the major leagues, he went over to Japan and he ended up being teammates with Roki Sasaki. They became friends. He ended up getting a job in the Blue Jays front office. It says here, it's unclear to what extent he and Sasaki still have when it comes to a relationship, but Mitchell reports that he's been involved with the recruitment so far. Or sorry, I think I said a second ago he was with the Blue Jays. No, he is with the Blue Jays. Mitchell reports that he's been involved with the recruitment so far, and it stands to reason that having a former teammate around will help sell him on joining a new organization. We're just reading tea leaves here, and if Sasaki wants to stay on the West Coast or compete for a World Series this season, we know where he'll end up. But maybe the Blue Jays aren't as long of a shot here as we previously thought. So that is something, I mean, who knows? Sometimes these little details that, I'm always intrigued when, something happens, whether that's a signing or a trade. I always love the little details that come out afterwards, like connections. Could this end up being something where, there's this little connection here and maybe it ends up being a bigger deal than we think? I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Who knows? We'll see. But that is the latest here when it comes to Roki Sasaki. Here we go. Moving on. We got a little something on, speaking of free agents, I was talking about, some free agents waiting for them to sign. And my goodness, can we please get a signing for crying out loud? I haven't done a live reaction stream here. It feels like forever. I think the last one we did, what was it, Corbin Burns? I feel like Corbin Burns was the last one that we did. I'm itching to go live and react to something. We might have a little something with Pete Alonso and the Mets. According to Joel Sherman and John Heyman, Alonso and the Mets are said to be making progress on at least the structure of a proposed deal that's expected to be for 3 years and include at least one opt-out. While the sides appear amendable to that short-term structure, there's still a gap between offer and counteroffer. Now, we saw a report not too long ago that Alonso, his side, they put a 3-year deal on the table with an opt-out. And when that happened, I thought to myself, I mean, they got to get something done at this point. I mean, how could you not get something done when the player is open to a deal like that? I mean, teams love the deals with the opt-outs at 3 years. I mean, I would imagine David Stearns, his eyes just grew wide when he saw that, right? To me, I don't see any reason why this doesn't get done. I've been saying it for a while now. I mean, we haven't even been hearing any other teams jumping into the mix. Again, that's based off of just what we hear. Who knows if there's other teams that could be, still trying to make some calls and whatnot. But listen, with Pete Alonso, I mean, him and the Mets, it just works, right? It just makes sense. They need that power bat in the middle of the order behind Soto. You got to keep that protection there. I mean, hey, it's not going to be the Aaron Judge kind of protection, but it's still pretty darn good in Pete Alonso. So, in the end, I expect something to get done. I would be very surprised if something does not happen. It was reported a little earlier from Andy Martino. Again, this was the latest update that we got about a couple hours ago. But we also got that reports from Andy Martino and Joel Sherman suggest a pivot point is coming where the Mets may move on to plans that don't involve Alonso having a place on the 2025 team. So, again, we did just get the update recently. Who knows? Maybe there's a gap they cannot overcome. And the Mets end up having to pivot. Now, there are some possible internal options. If we're looking at, I believe, I wanted to give credit to the article, but it is what it is. Or maybe it was here. Where was it? I can't find it now. Well, if we are looking at the New York Mets, I mean, to me, I just, I know a lot of people before, they were looking at, they could go get Alex Bregman, right? He can go be your third baseman. Mark Vientos can be your first baseman. I just didn't see that. Because I don't know. I just feel like Pete Alonso, he is going to end up getting a cheaper contract than Alex Bregman. And I don't know. You just don't usually see that. You don't usually see a team where they're trying to negotiate with someone and then they turn to a more expensive option. Doesn't usually happen that way. Usually it's the other way around. You try to negotiate with a dude that is pretty pricey. It ends up not working out. You go to a fallback option, right? Usually not the other way around. So if Pete Alonso, if they can't figure something out, then my guess, honestly, would be give another shot to Brett Beatty. You got Vientos there. Could they go after possibly like a cheaper option for first base, and then Vientos could play some third? Don't forget, you got Luis Angel Acuna. You got Jeff McNeil here. So there's options. That's the way I see the Mets going if Pete Alonso ends up going elsewhere. I think they just stick with what they have internally. However, we got a little something here. We got a little something here today. Could Vlad Jr. be on the block? I mean, what in the world? When I saw this today, I'm like, ooh, I've talked about, I believe in a video before. I can't remember what video, but I did mention somewhere. I mean, why couldn't the Mets just turn to Vlad Jr. if Pete Alonso doesn't come back? Well, instead of, turning to Alex Bregman, why don't you go swing a trade for Vlad if he becomes available? Well, I don't know. Maybe someone was listening to a video of mine or whatever, wherever I talked about it. And the Mets, according to league sources, this was written by Andy Martino, the Mets have spoken with the Blue Jays this winter about Guerrero. Though those sources characterize the conversations as checking in. And of course, I'm definitely guilty of this, but the big overreactions, they were they were happening far and wide on Twitter land. And Mets fans were getting rather excited at the idea of Vlad Jr. Now, we've talked about the Blue Jays at length this offseason. It seems like as every day passes, they're having a harder time trying to land the free agents. However, they did pull a trade for Andres Gimenez, taking on the big contract of him. And to me, that's how I'm thinking. If they're having a tough time landing some of these guys, maybe you can go pull off a trade. Now, with Vlad, again, that comes down to whether or not the Blue Jays want to move him. And pretty much everyone out there is saying they would be shocked if he ended up getting traded, right? I believe Martino said that, or he said it's very unlikely. John Heyman went on his Bleacher Report stream today, said he would be shocked. Robert Murray on the Baseball Insiders podcast today said he would be shocked. Because, for me, my personal opinion, I don't know, man. If I'm the Blue Jays, I get it. There's a business here and you're trying to sell tickets. I get it. From a baseball point of view, though, the fact that you are unable to land any of these guys and right now your farm system is in kind of a tough spot and you're not ranking very well, to me, it's like I would probably just trade him and try to get back a major league ready piece that will be in the fold for the next few years. Sorry to, bring up Giraffe Neck Robbie here, but here he is. There's been people out there that have said the idea of Tristan Casas for Vlad Jr. It's kind of the idea I'm thinking, like if there's a guy out there that has a lot of upside and he's a cost-controlled player, that's the kind of a guy you would like to go for, right? And then, for the Red Sox, Vlad Jr. Well, I'm going to be talking about Vlad Jr. over on Fenway Faithful right after tonight's show. So I'll dive more into that. But that's what I would think the Blue Jays would want. Someone cost-controlled. Looking at the Mookie Betts trade, looking at the Juan Soto trade, both of them. Well, I'd say the Padres one from the Padres to the Yankees is the better comp. Just because Soto was in the same situation where he was a year away from free agency. The Padres, they picked up Michael King. He was the major league ready piece that was under control. You got some prospects there. Same thing with Mookie. Alex Verdugo was the major league ready piece under club control. You got a couple of prospects in Jeter Downs and Connor Wong. So that's kind of the framework there for Vlad. That's why a lot of people say, oh, well, Tristan Casas, right? He's that major league ready guy that's under control. And, for the Mets, though, if we were to set up a deal here on baseball trade values, everyone, I am going to be doing a video tomorrow on some Vlad Jr. trade ideas. Ivan Nava, Casas for Vlad is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I guess from what point of view are you looking at it from? What point of view? Because I see a lot of Red Sox fans say that they would love to see that. If you're looking at it from the Blue Jays' point of view, I mean, I would think from the Blue Jays' point of view, that would be very solid if you can do that. From the Red Sox point of view, I mean, sorry, but Ivan Nava, Toronto gains nothing from that. Well, no, they do gain something. They gain a very cheap, high upside, cost-controlled first baseman for the long term in Tristan Casas. 4 more years of control, very cheap. That's exactly the kind of guy the Blue Jays would want. I got to disagree with you there, Ivan. Got to disagree with you. Or at least someone of that kind of a player, right? You got to think of how, front offices think. Yes, they're going for the good players, but they're also looking to see how cheap they can get these players and how long they have them until free agency. Casas would be literally, in my opinion, like if the Blue Jays somehow, if they got that, I mean, that would be a huge win for the Blue Jays, in my opinion. I mean, that's turning lemons into at least a decent kind of lemonade, right? At least you're getting something out of it to cover your butt for the next, 4 years or so. And Casas, there's a lot of upside there. So anyway, I'm rambling. Now, when it comes to the Mets, if you're looking at it from the point of view where we talked about the Mookie trade, the Juan Soto trade, who could be a guy now that could help them? I mean, in my opinion, if you're looking at guys with a lot of value, I don't know, man. I don't know if you would pretty much have to maybe work something around probably prospects. The one guy that, again, this is not a good idea. I'm just pointing out, if there is one guy that you could probably include in this, would be like Brett Beatty, right? I'm not saying that's a good idea, but if you're looking at it from the point of view, if you're looking for a young, cost-controlled guy that has major league experience, Beatty obviously has not done very well in the majors. He does check off that box as a major league ready guy. So if you were to do a deal around Beatty, throw in a couple of prospects, maybe throw in like Ryan Clifford, I don't know, maybe like Ronnie Mauricio. I mean, you're in the ballpark at that point. That's kind of the only thing I could see the Blue Jays and the Mets doing if there was a trade to be made. I see you in the chat too. Dark Shadow, Mauricio, Clifford, and Tidwell. And again, I would imagine the Blue Jays would want a big overpay here. So keep that in mind. Just because of the simulator, this looks pretty close to even, but you got to remember that's only half the battle. The other half is being realistic at the same time. So just keep that in mind. So yeah, you might have to, maybe one more guy here. Like you said, like a Blade Tidwell, Well, Fibs, the Blue Jays aren't going to overpay for him. I think they would, right? Because they don't have to trade him. They could wait till the deadline, even though, yeah, you're going to lose half a season of Vlad at that point. If they wanted to keep him, they could, and they can try to compete. It's not like, I see what you're saying, though. I'm not saying you're wrong. I think personally, and especially what the competition would be, you got to look at it from that point of view. If the Mets are looking to get him, if he becomes available, let's make sure we point that out first. If he actually becomes available, well, then I would imagine you're going to get a couple of teams that are going to jump into the mix. The Mets, honestly, I'd probably think maybe even the Red Sox make a call. I mean, the Mariners could probably make a call. The Angels, maybe the Angels want to get funky. What a bat that would be, for the Angels. All right. So there are teams out there that I wonder if they could make a phone call. And there could end up being competition. But if you're looking at it from just the Mets point of view, I could see something with Brett Beatty, Ryan Clifford, Ronnie Mauricio, maybe throw in one more guy. I don't know. Like you said, Blade Tidwell, one of the, something like that. So Do I see this happening, though? I do not. I do not. Now, moving on, we will keep our eyes on this. But let's talk a little Alex Bregman. A little Alex Bregman. Well, of course we got to talk about Alex Bregman because, he hasn't signed yet. I mean, when the heck is this guy going to sign? Well, maybe the Cubs could be a suitor for Mr. Bregman. Right? What we've seen with Bregman over the course of the last month. It looked like he was going to go to the Astros or back to the Astros at one point. They offered him a pretty solid deal, 6 years, around $150 million, according to the reports. Ended up turning that down. The Astros pivoted. They traded away Kyle Tucker. They brought in Isaac Paredes. They signed Christian Walker. I keep seeing people out there saying that they could still bring him back, and I've seen one guy out there tell me that you could just put Isaac Paredes out in left field, even though he's never played an inning of outfield in his professional baseball career. I guess you could if you had the conversation. I personally think Bregman to Houston is probably out of the cards. Now, it's off the table at this point. We've seen the Tigers. I keep thinking he's going to go to the Tigers, but the more time that goes by, I just wonder, like, what's happening here. If the Tigers were so hot on him at one point, what happened and why didn't he go there? The Red Sox keep getting brought up. There's been people out there saying, like Jared Carabas, for one, he's hinted at the fact that the Red Sox haven't even made an offer. Carlos Baerga has come out on his... I know he's hit or miss. I get that, but, whatever. He has hit. He's been reporting on his podcast that the Red Sox do have an offer on the table. And now we got the Cubs that are popping up. And according to Bruce Levine of 670 The Score, he's saying here, Boris and the Cubs have been having casual conversations. Well, when it comes to the Cubs, this is one, I'm looking at one hurdle here, and that's Matt Shaw, who has been great. If you go back over this past year, he was incredible in the minor leagues. Hit 284, 379 on base, 867 OPS overall, 21 homers, 31 stolen bases. I'm a big Matt Shaw guy. He just played in the Premier 12 tournament for the All-World, or for Team USA. And he hit great in that. I believe they have his stats here. In the tournament, he hit .412 with a .706 slugging, 14 RBIs, had as many extra base hits as strikeouts. I mean, the guy has been phenomenal, right? Of course, he has to win a job out of spring training, but it seems like there's a lot of people out there that think he could be in the mix for an opening day spot. I don't know. I mean, I love Matt Shaw, man. I remember when he got drafted, I'm thinking, yeah, this guy, he'll be up in the major leagues. He just has something about him, right? He looked very close to major league ready to me. But when it comes to the Cubs, you would have to do something. If Shaw is not in your plans, yes, you could just have him at AAA. He could end up just for this year, end up being depth. And then you could have Bregman at third, Horner at second, maybe even, I don't know. I think they would want Shaw playing full time. So I don't see him having a bench spot. I mean, they're pretty much set with this lineup now. So really, you're putting Shaw at AAA if you end up signing Bregman. I mean, this year at AAA, he played 35 games, had a 929 OPS. Look like he's ready to go. So I guess theoretically, yes, you could just keep him at AAA. But, I mean, if you're looking at it from a value point of view, what would you rather have the Cubs do? I mean, go a 3-year deal with an opt-out for Bregman? And then risk that he doesn't opt out, just like Cody Bellinger? Or he had the player options or whatever? And then what happens if you sign Bregman? He ends up maybe not performing very well, and then he stays in the contract. Well, then what do you do at that point? You're kind of stuck. Nico Horner, he's not a free agent here for a couple of years. The only way I could see this really happening is if they move Nico Horner in a trade. So, I mean, the Mariners could use a second baseman. If they move Horner then, but he's had, I believe he had elbow surgery this past offseason. I think he's not going to miss too much time. Probably should be ready around like within the first couple of months, first month or so. But that's really the only way I could see it. And, this is where I kind of get back to the, when it comes to the Red Sox and the Tigers, I don't know. When I read this just kind of felt like a leverage play. They're trying to get as many teams involved here. When I see casual conversations, it's like, I'm imagining that phone call. Boris calls him. Hey, Jed, man, what do you think? Bregman? What do you think? Yeah, we like him. We'd have to figure out, Shaw, he has to win the job, but, we like him a lot. Horner, I don't know. We'd have to figure out what's going on with him. Maybe, we could circle back on it depending on what happens this offseason. Sure, that could be on the table. I don't really see, like, right now at least, unless something happens where the Cubs are, like, dead set on getting this guy. I don't know, man. That's just how I see it. I'm just going to circle back. This is where, the Tigers, who knows what the offer, we know they've made an offer. Right? But what is the offer? I haven't really found anything concrete. It's believed, and maybe I missed it. I could have missed it, but it's believed it's a 4 or 5 year deal. But who knows? I think even Baerga or someone out there, I feel like I read this somewhere too, that it might even be a 3-year offer from Detroit. Either way, whatever the offer was, there is a gap when it comes to the value of what they think of him, as well as what Bregman's side thinks. So how motivated are the Tigers here? I don't know. And the Red Sox, it seems like they're trying to play the JD Martinez thing. If you look at it, the Red Sox, they kind of just seem like the team that seems to be the team that is willing to, I don't know. Maybe it's just my opinion. Maybe it's hopeful thinking, but they could use someone at second base. That would block, guys like who knows what happens with Christian Campbell, Von Grissom. But I don't know. That's kind of just the way I see it. Like the Red Sox right now, Cora, he thinks of him as a second baseman, and that's where he would go. They need a right-handed hitter. I guess there's been some stuff cooling off with Nolan Arenado as of late. Haven't really heard anything about that. I guess some other teams could be jumping in the mix. When we saw those reports, I was thinking, okay, maybe there's nothing really going on with the Red Sox. But then Carlos Baerga reported that they have a 3-year offer on the table with an option. Who knows? Maybe there's an opt-out. I don't know. But that's what Baerga is saying. Whether, I get it. Yes, hit or miss. But he has hit. I don't know, man. I just think with Bregman, this whole thing just feels like leverage. I think it seems like they're trying to get the Red Sox to maybe commit to a 4-year deal. Could you end up seeing a 4-year deal like Josh Donaldson got with the Twins? What was that, 2019 when he got that deal? Or 2018? I think it was 2019. Maybe you see something like that. I think if Bregman gets a 4-year deal, I think you end up probably seeing right around a $30 million AAV. I honestly think you could see like a 4-year, at least $120 million contract for Bregman. So we'll see what ends up happening. Now, the last bit of news that we have here, International Signing Day. We're all waiting on Roki Sasaki, right? But we did have some big names come off the board, and I'll be honest, I haven't really, dove into the international prospects, especially here on the channel. I've dabbed in it. I've looked. But hey, got some dudes coming off the board here. Josué de Jesus Gonzalez out of the Dominican Republic going to the San Francisco Giants under a $3 million signing bonus, which, considering that guys behind him like Elian Pena, Chris Rodriguez, Andrew Salas, they ended up getting more on their signing bonus. So, hey, good for the Giants, able to kind of get him at a minimum here. Now, when it comes to his scouting report, here's the one thing I will say about international prospects. I feel like usually when it comes to the international prospects, their scouting reports always seem just so inflated. Is that just me? I feel like you go look at prospects within organizations, you know, you'll see like, 50 hit tool for the most part, for even under that, 55, usually the top guys, the top prospects are the ones with the 60 hit tools, 60 power. But then you go to the international free agent, or sorry, international prospects, and they're always just like, I mean, these are young guys here. I mean, Josué Gonzalez, 17 years old, a 60 hit, 60 power. I mean, who knows what ends up happening with him down the road. But hey, looks like a pretty good scouting report here. 60 hit, 60 power. Shortstop. You did have a few shortstops coming off near the top of the board here. And you got to remember here, shortstop is the most athletic, it's the most well-rounded position in baseball. They're usually very athletic, usually have higher IQs. They're kind of like the commander, besides the catcher. They're like almost like the commander of the infield, right? They're that one player, their shortstop, they could probably slide over to third because they usually have a pretty good arm. They usually have the range to go play second base. And usually enough speed to go handle an outfield spot, right? So that's why you usually see shortstops coming off the board when it comes to the international signings, because they're usually the most well-rounded, and you can, for the most part, teams look to build their team around shortstops, right? It's kind of the way, for the most part, it goes. So, for the Giants, it looks like they got themselves a pretty good prospect. He is a switch hitter as well. If you're looking at the scouting report here, much more polished product from the left side of the plate and displays plus bat speed with an advanced feel for the barrel. I always like to hear the guys that have the good plate discipline, right? Elian Pena, he went to the Mets, 65 on the hit tool, got a 50 power. Looks a little, I don't want to say undersized, right? I always hate saying undersized because it's like, we've seen so many players, undersized where they end up being great players, right? Like Dustin Pedroia, for example. But I really like the scouting report here for Pena. Hit tool is his calling card, equipped with oodles of bat speed from the left side, complements his propensity to hit the ball hard with some of the most advanced plate discipline seen on the international scene in years. Love that. That's what I like to see in a prospect. Plate discipline. Love that. All right. There's Chris Rodriguez. He went to the Tigers. Fuzzy was going very high on him today on Twitter, saying looks a lot like Alex Rodriguez. Right. If you kind of look at the stance here, you sort of see it. You kind of see a little A-Rod there, right? The finish of the swing, the follow through kind of looks a little A-Rod-ish, right? There was he's got like that. There was one swing he did here where it was like a one-handed follow through. There it was, right here. Kind of looks like A-Rod. Right? Kind of reminds you of it. But when it comes to his scouting report, lots of power, 70 on the power. And there's a lot of projection here. He's 6'3", 16 years old. I mean, crying out loud. He's an outfielder. That's the difference there. Could we end up seeing the outfield version of Alex Rodriguez down the road? We will see. And then we also had Andrew Salas, the younger brother of Ethan Salas, right? And Jose. 65 on the hit tool. Not a lot of power. But I wonder if you end up seeing a bit of a boost there, because he's pretty big for his size right now, 6'2". If he ends up developing well, I wonder if he ends up adding more power there. Right, 40 is pretty low, but very good in the field, has versatility, so there is that. And then we also had Yorger Bautista going to the Mariners, outfield prospect. I mean, we all know Roki Sasaki's number one, so you're kind of looking at these other guys here, right? Another outfielder guy, lots of power from the left side of the plate, 17, big arm. Seems like a corner outfielder down the road, right? Again, when it comes to the international prospects, you just never know what's going to happen. These guys are so far away. They're fun, right? It's fun to kind of think about the possibility of what they could do in the future. There was another one here another one. We have here Shotaro Mory signing with the Oakland A's. An 18-year-old two-way Japanese slugger signs a record-setting deal with the A's. Now, he did not play in the Nippon Professional League, right? Just completely skipped that. Coming out of high school, signed a $1.5 million deal, the largest bonus ever for a Japanese amateur outside of the NPB. Now, are we going to see the next Ohtani? Well, I mean, who knows? Now, it says here, a left-handed hitter with 45 high school home runs to his credit, Mory has already been clocked as high as 95 miles an hour on the hill. They say here that the scouts see more of his future being in the batter's box and his arm, because it's so good, he probably ends up being maybe a good shortstop down the road. Hey, let's see it, man. I would love to see more of these two-way players, man. We'll see. But hey, some good news. Did I say the Oakland A's? Or did I say the A's? I can't remember. But anyway, there is that. The Rays, once again, I mean, they just always dominate at this kind of stuff. But I mean, if you think about it from the Rays, right? The money that they do have, they invest so heavily into the scouting, right? Whether it's nationally or internationally, right? They're not going to have the money to go out there and land the big free agents, but they'll go out there and look for some of these international guys. And once again, it looks like they had themselves a good year. They landed three guys within the top 30. They landed Mikel Corrette at number 9, Raymer Medina at number 20, and Warel Solano at number 30. All right. So what do you know? The Rays once again getting stuff done. But everyone, I'm going to wrap it up right there. I'm going to be going live here over on Fenway Faithful in just a little bit. I've gone over on the time here. But just wanted to go over the news for today. Again, we're just waiting on Roki Sasaki. Hey, if he ends up signing with a West Coast team like the Dodgers or the Padres, right now it's not even 7 o'clock there. So who knows? I mean, we could end up seeing a late night signing, especially if it's the Dodgers or the Padres. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we ended up getting a report that he signs at like 1 a.m. or they announce the signing at like 1 a.m. or something like that, right? Because it's West Coast, so remember that. We will see. But everyone, I'm going to hop out of here. I'm going to get over to Fenway Faithful, do a quick show over there. Remixed. Also, just want to shout you out here. You've been a member now for 13 months. You're amazing, my friend. You say here, my poor Cardinals are in such a miserable state. I mean, what's going to happen here with Nolan Arenado? I don't know what's going on. Are they going to be able to move him? That'd be crazy at this point with the amount he's been talked about. I don't know, my friend. But everyone, I'm going to wrap it up there. Expect a video tomorrow. I'm going to do something there. Talk about some Vlad trades. I got some other videos lined up that I'm going to be working on here over the next week or so. So keep an eye out. Make sure that notification bell is turned on. If you are new, think about subscribing down below. Hit that like button for me. But everyone, I'll talk to you next time.